Welcome to Demolition Success Secrets, the podcast that's changing the game for demolition businesses everywhere. Ever wondered how a wrecking ball wielding industry can leverage digital marketing to dominate their market? Well, we've got the blueprints, strategies, expert guests, and more to show you how. Stay tuned, because we're about to blast through the barriers of your business.
All right, welcome guys. Another awesome episode of Demolition Success Secrets. We have John in the house on the line, first time doing Google Meet. It's a big moment for all of us here. And yeah, he's a pro. We talked in our pre-interview. He's got some really cool wisdom. So John, welcome.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So how did you get in the biz? How did all this transpire?
I started out probably about 13 years ago cleaning out for closed homes. And before that, actually, I was trying to become kind of a legitimate scrap metal dealer, but the stigma behind the scrap metal dealer being, just a bunch of tweakers out trying to get their next fix. I couldn't overcome that. And then the price came down on scrap metal. And so I discovered the foreclosed home cleanups, and then that kind of took off from there. Just got my foot in the door and tried to expand all my services from there.
Awesome. Now, how did you come up with your company's name, the logo, all that fun stuff? Because it's pretty slick. I like the name.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know. I kind of regret my name choice a little bit because I think it's maybe too long and doesn't quite maybe encompass everything. But when I first started, I had a business partner, and his mom owned Apex Real Estate. And so we just kind of stole her name and added, our touch to it. So, but he kind of lost interest after not even a year, and I took over the business.
Crazy. Okay. What did he go move on to? Anything high and mighty, or?
Well, so he's a welder fabricator. So he opened up a fabrication shop and then a car lot, and he's done a whole bunch of other things, and he just has his hands in pretty much everything.
Okay. Are those things like pretty big and successful, or is it kind of like he's spread thin? He loves a new adventure.
Well, unfortunately,
I won't tell him.
he's done really well with the fabrication, but he kind of, I think, got burned out on it a little bit, and he moved on to the car lot, and then that didn't do too well. So, I mean, I think he's going to start back up with fabrication again. So he's done really well with that. I mean, there's a lot of money in fabrication. If you know how to weld and you know how to fabricate, you'll always have a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on your business success, where did you feel, or how are you guys feeling right now with scaling? Was it something that it took hold after X amount of time, or you still feel like there's always more milestones, right? But how did it catch, and kind of where are you guys now in the growth phase?
That's a good question. 2022 and 2023 were really good years, really good growth years. I was able to buy, new equipment, and I think there's a lot of people at home with COVID money that wanted to do home improvements, so that helped. And then just the economy overall for this type of thing, and then buying, home sales and stuff, and the interest rates were pretty good, and there are a lot of people, buying and selling homes, and that's kind of led to that. But I think I've pretty much reached a peak. This year last year kind of leveled off, and I didn't really do a whole lot of growth, like financially, and then this year has actually scaled back just a little bit. As far as busyness goes, because there's a lot of people getting into the junk removal industry and then starting to break into some demolition stuff as well. So a lot more company, a lot more competition out there.
Right. It's so funny because we hear that across the board, where particularly in like full teardown demo, some people are just like, you have no idea how competitive it is. And actually, I had a podcast, it was just a few weeks ago, where I was told essentially a GC had put out an offer, for a job that needed to be done. And who I had on the, podcast as a guest, he was like, yeah, we used to bid against a few people. The GC took me aside and said, hey man, like we are getting a lot of bids, way more, like triple, quadruple what we used to. And
Yeah.
this is happening over the last, year, 2 years, that kind of thing, substantially over the last few quarters. Interesting. Why do you think that is? And does that scare you, or is that just an opportunity to stand out with your quality?
Yeah. So, well, I think, yeah, it's probably an opportunity to try and flaunt my good qualities, which is the experience. Junk
Mm,
removal is definitely not rocket science, but demolition can have a lot of things that you really need to know about, as far as like the asbestos testing and utilities and special waste manifests and um, permits and stuff like that. Because I know a lot of companies don't want to do the permits; they want the homeowners to do the permits. And I've had a lot of experience doing that, and that's one thing I can offer, for an extra charge, and people are usually pretty happy about that.
right. They're like, please take it off my plate.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's
Now,
for
do you
sure.
guys have like a expediter, or is that just something you're so good at, or maybe you have the right relationships where you could kick permits through pretty quick?
I think probably because the people at the permit, at the counties and the cities, they know me, and I'm contracted out with some of them too, anyway, just for jobs and everything, and so having a working relationship definitely makes it easier, and then of course having the experience makes it a lot easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, tell me how you guys transpired. I believe junk removal was kind of the focus at first, and then demolition came into the mix.
Yeah.
Is that correct? How did that look?
Yeah, demolition I think started in 2016, I believe, is when I started
Okay.
doing the demo stuff, because I got my CCB license, because you have to be licensed to do any if you do any kind of alterations on a house, you are supposed to have your CCB, and then along with that you need to know what needs to get tested for asbestos and stuff like that. And there's a lot of junk removal companies that also do some demolition stuff that don't that aren't licensed and don't do the necessary testing, you know
Mm,
because the asbestos is pretty important, because potentially a homeowner can be in trouble for not having that testing done and dumping asbestos into a landfill. The property can get stuck with that. I'm sure it's probably rare that they would be held accountable, but a contractor, if he doesn't have his license or proper stuff, that then he can become really really in trouble. So
mm. Okay. So when you started the business, was one taking up more of your time, the demo versus the junk removal?
junk removal has always taken up probably more of my time. I
Okay.
think as far as how much we were doing, is about 50-50, 50, you know, between junk removal, brush clearing, and then full demolition. And then sometimes I'll have one crew doing, interior demo, and then one crew doing a full home demo.
Okay.
Just
Got it.
just
Now,
depends on what's going on. I don't even know how to even judge.
yeah, it just kind of comes at you guys, and you sort and filter through it and make the best of it. That's awesome.
Right.
Okay. Um, Now, a lot of people, are they reaching out word of mouth? Is a lot of it your website? A lot of it, obviously you guys have great reviews.
Yeah.
How is most of the business coming in?
Just everywhere. Word of mouth, website. I mean, since I've been doing it for 14 years, a lot of people know me. So, I mean, word
Right.
of mouth definitely helps. Some Facebook, maybe some Instagram, but mostly I think probably just people just knowing me.
Okay. Just kind of in the community, seeing the trucks. Yep,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Do you guys, have a growth plan, or any expectations in the future of how to grow bigger? Do you want to grow faster? Just grow
Growth
strong and slow?
growth plan's always been pretty organic, and just yeah, I don't think I really have much of a plan, like an actual. I've never really had a business plan, so um, I think I liked where we were last year. I'd like to be kind of back up. I'm hoping that this year I can at least reach last year's gross. So
Okay, got it. Yep. And the thought there is just, maybe more community activity, more projects lead to more word of mouth, more referrals, that
yeah,
kind of thing.
I
Okay,
do I do a
got it.
lot of volunteer stuff in the community as well. Just I've always done that just because it's the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, and it's cool because when the right thing happens, it just so happens to also give you opportunities.
Yeah,
But the opportunities aren't the reason you're doing it. You're doing it to do the right thing. But it's cool how there's like that ebb and flow and kind of the yin and yang. When you do the right thing, many a times good comes back to you. Not always, but many a
that's
times.
true. Yeah.
That's cool. Now, when you're doing that, is that, project work in the neighborhood that is at a discounted rate? Is that done sometimes for free? What does that kind of look like, the volunteering?
The volunteer stuff is totally free. There are some companies that will use me, and I'll do, like, for example, last year I demolished a house. Basically, I just did an at cost
Okay.
demo for them because they were building some. It's a nonprofit group that was building low income housing, and so I demolished a site and took and hauled off a bunch of trees and stuff. Um, so yeah, I guess I mean I'm also a board member on the furniture share, which I can donate any usable items for
Mm,
needy families. So that's nice, and I do volunteer for fundraising events for them as well.
got it. Okay. I would love to hear some crazy stories on the junk side, and I'd love to hear some crazy stories on the demo side.
Um,
Have you ever felt like you're on an episode of Hoarders with the junk side?
oh
Probably
yeah,
many times.
yeah. I've done some real nasty ones. I know one of the more recent ones we did in Sweet Home was a gal that had to basically be more or less not forced, but basically kind of taken out of her house because the fire department got tired of coming in there and rescuing her because most of it was piled up about 4 to 5 feet high, and it was just all garbage, nasty, rotten garbage. And
Oh,
she, over the past 5 years or so, had been using puppy pads to go to the
oh,
bathroom on, and there were 5 foot high piles of puppy pads and adult diapers, and they'd been there for so long that we actually had to use a pickaxe to get it all to come apart to get it
wow.
out of the house. So that was probably one of the nastiest ones we've ever done.
Hmm.
And then of course, the corresponding rats and mice and cats and everything. That's always fun.
Wild, wild,
Yeah.
wild. Have you guys ever been approached for shows or videos or documentaries or anything? Like people,
I've
oh man.
I've never been approached. I know there's one lady that I used to do junk removal for called Queen Bee Organizing that was on an episode of Hoarders. But that was, I think, before I started doing the haul offs for her. She goes
That's
in,
fascinating.
yeah, she goes and she does estate sales, and so whatever didn't sell or donate, then she would have me haul off the rest. So
Wild, wild, wild. Okay, so that's a great, fascinating story for the junk side. How about on the demo side?
um I mean, just aside from some of the cool locations we've done, I've done, some very rural properties that just were beautiful places to be. Some old nasty 60s or 70s mobile home sitting on this gorgeous piece of property out in like Lacombe. We've done a few out in Lacombe and then some out in the LC area. and it's just really pretty country, here in Oregon. So, but nothing really wild, I don't think. I mean, we of course find the occasional possum, raccoon, whatever. We never encountered any mountain lions or bears, because usually when you fire up the equipment, they all go running. So,
Right.
but we did do one where there was a family of skunks living under the house, and we had to wait until they vacated, and then we started tearing it down, and they wanted to come back, but they decided against it.
Oh man.
Yeah, so thankfully we were able to kind of shoo them away. So
That's amazing. Well, how about a successful company? You've done this now for over a decade, which not everyone could say that about their businesses. What do you think makes you guys so different and have that longevity as other people? They're kind of a flash in the pan, they're here and they're gone.
I think the biggest secret to my success would be answering my phone.
So basic, but so important.
Yeah, I think it's weird how many times I get called and they're like, "Oh wow, you answer your phone," or "Oh wow, you return messages." So I think that would be my secret to success, is answering the phone.
The phone.
Yeah.
That is funny. You know what's it's interesting because that's such a basic answer, but I've heard that a number of times.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
is crazy because, like, if you have a real business, sometimes it goes to a front end person or a salesperson or the owner themselves.
Oh yeah.
I never have understood that. I know people are busy and things come up, but like there's systems where if you don't pick up in the first four rings, it goes to the next person. If they don't pick up in the next four rings, it goes to someone else. And there's ways to have on voicemail, as an example, hey, we couldn't make it, but guess what? You could text us immediately at this number. We're much quicker or more readily available for a texting system. And it can go to automations. It can go to a human. It can go to whatever. Okay, that's fascinating. And I'm sure if you don't get something, you're going to call them back as soon as you can.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really try to. I mean, there's been a few times where it's gotten so busy and then I didn't have time for a while, and, I was too late because I called them back and they're like, well, we needed junk removal immediately. It's amazing how many people have junk removal emergencies. You would
Right.
Emergency, but yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier people are coming in the business. They're just a lot of people, and sometimes that means they could bid low or be more competitively priced. They're not necessarily more competitive in value when you look at the quality plus the pricing.
Right.
Are there a lot of times, for a demo, perhaps there's more bids for junk removal, and for demo, I'd love to see your opinion. How many opinions are people typically getting, or quotes, estimates are they receiving before pulling the trigger?
They usually, lately it's been usually about two, sometimes three, but usually about two or three. Before, a lot of the people that I've been working with, they just knew that they could trust me because of who referred me. It just depends. It kind of depends on the time of year and how the economy is doing. And one thing that is interesting, I have a hard time competing against people who aren't fully insured or licensed.
Sure.
And I've never been able to follow up as often as I'd like, but I know a few times I've followed up with people who went with a quite a bit lower bid, and it turns out they like abandoned ship halfway through the project, and because it was just ended up being too much for them. And a lot of people, or a lot of newer companies, don't know about that you have to have business auto insurance, and you don't have to have business insurance, and that kind of stuff. And then also, of course, workman's comp insurance. And I can't compete against people who don't have all that. So
Sure. Now, for us internally as business owners and things like that, means a lot to us. How do you readily kind of communicate that to potential new clients when there's the concern of, oh, they're probably shopping, or maybe they're kicking tires or something? Do you focus on your reviews? Do you focus on your tenure? and you kind of stack the deck before they say, oh, you're not the cheapest price, which is not your goal.
Yeah, I mean, I just let them know I'm a licensed contractor with 14 years of experience. So and that's basically I without trying to push it on people. That's I just basically let them know, hey, I'm fully licensed and got a lot of experience, and I know a lot of different ways that I can save people money on like junk cars. Some people think, oh, I don't have I don't have a title or keys, and it's going to cost so much to get rid of this. And I mean, I have people that can haul those away for free, or sometimes they can even get money for them. So
interesting.
Yep.
That's cool. Let's see. There we go. All right, sweet. So yeah, any kind of ambitions on the demo side? We talked kind of pre-interview in terms of the scales that you guys are doing. Are you looking to go deeper or bigger into the future with that segment, or you guys are doing just pretty well with the homes, mobile homes, that kind of thing?
I mean, I suppose it would be nice to start getting into some of the commercial stuff, but the problem is I don't own the excavator that we use. I rent,
Sure.
because the logistics of buying and paying for an excavator, and then I have to get my guy licensed for a commercial driver's license, and then the insurance is higher, and then I have to get a big trailer and a truck to haul it, and it's just the logistics of that make it, I think, a little bit cost prohibitive. And I like my profit margins the way they are now, and every time I crunch the numbers on expansion, it would be a pretty it would be a pretty big gamble on my part, I think,
Right.
for trying to get into the bigger demolitions, because there are a lot of companies that offer the larger demolitions that I just could never compete against. I mean, I can think of it, like Mid Valley Gravel is one of them. There's no way I could compete against them. They have great prices for what they do, and they're well equipped, and they got started. I don't know exactly when, but they've got good profit margins, I'm sure. So I think probably short answer would be I'm pretty good with where I was last year. As long as I can get there this year, then I'd probably be pretty happy with that.
Got it. And I guess big projects, homes and trailer homes and things probably do add in pretty nicely to the revenue. Junk removal, obviously bigger projects are pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Are demo jobs the highest revenue? Not profit per se, but revenue relative to junk, unless the junk's a pretty big job?
It just depends on who I'm working for. Demolition can pay a little bit better just because there's less employees involved, and it's just basically one guy on an excavator, and then another guy raking up all the leftover bits. So it's
Right.
it's a little easier, and you just fill up dumpsters. So that definitely makes it easier than having to drive around a truck and trailer and have three guys pulling things in and out of houses. And profit margins on the demos are a little bit higher than the junk removal.
Okay. And even revenue itself, possibly more high, per job on demo, or can junk removal revenues be pretty high as well?
Well, it depends on the size of the job. It just depends. They flip flop against each other, I think. Yeah. So yeah, it depends on how big the job and who we're working for and that kind of stuff. So demo can pay better and junk removal can pay better.
Right. That's cool. It's like an ebb and flow. Like one day it's this, the next day it's that. That's good.
Right.
Kind of differentiates. It diversifies the income. So
Yeah.
if one's a little soft, the other one's doing well. Okay.
Yeah.
last few questions, team members, how do you get good people? How do you keep good people? I know that it can be a very challenging question sometimes.
Well, that's one of those ones that seems pretty easy to answer, to me, but I mean, you have to pay your guys really well, and I pay my
Mm,
guys really well, and they're able to keep things that they find that they like or think maybe if they can resell and make a little bit of extra money. We don't usually
cool.
find anything of super high value, but yeah, I mean, just paying your people well, taking care of them, giving them benefits. I have benefits and bonuses if we do really well on a job, they get a percentage, and they're been, I mean, with me for, I mean, I have one guy that's been with me for 9 years, another guy that's been with me for 5 years, and the other two have been, part-time for at least 5 years. And then
Oh,
my stepson recently has joined in and started helping out with some stuff. And so hopefully he can take it over from me.
cool. Yeah, I was going to ask, is there ever a plan to sell? Seems like more handing it off.
Well, I mean, if he wants to, I don't know if he's still pretty young. He's 19 or 20. So, I don't know. I've talked to him a little bit about it. I don't know if he's all that interested in maybe taking it over, but if somebody came along and made me a really awesome, offer on the business, I'd consider it.
Mm. Is there a magic line in the sand that, let's say it was perfect situation, just someone gives you a big check? Is there some magic number that you'd be like, all right, I'd be an idiot to not take that?
That's a good question. I've never put a value, I guess, on the sale of my business. I haven't really researched that a whole lot. I mean, I guess if somebody gave me $1 million for it, but I really don't see that ever happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, depending on revenues and profit margins and things like that, some people, in some businesses too, the multiples are pretty good. And some people might be able to come in. I'm sure they would have a very difficult time replicating you, but
Mhm.
they have a way to make it work where you help for the first year or two and get some sort of management in there, take them from a similar industry or the same industry, prop them up and say, never leave me. Please.
Right,
Just someone with money, they may have the experience, they may not.
right.
Okay, that's interesting. That would be really, really interesting. So $1 million, possibly, not that that's the exact thing. Maybe it's
Yeah,
2 million. Who knows? Maybe it's
yeah,
20.
yeah.
Uh, that's cool. All right. And what would you do post sale? Would you go kick your feet up on the beach? Would you go to Disney? Uh,
I'd probably pursue uh, buying and selling real estate more.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to get more into that. I do a little bit
Okay.
right now. I like to buy properties that are derelict and fix them up and rent them out. So I think that'd be, if I could do more of that, that would be great.
Interesting. Yeah, I've partaken where Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Mississippi. I think that's all the states. I've done that same thing. Not necessarily the worst of the worst conditions. Some of them were. Some of them it was just kind of some value add here and there,
Yeah,
but it's a lot of fun. It's especially with your ability to kind of have good estimates, and obviously you're a handy guy. Um, for me, I kind of looked at the numbers. I try to connect the right people for the right projects, and there's
yeah,
pros and cons. There's
yeah.
some really killer projects that work out awesome, and there's some projects that you wish you never touched.
Oh, I'm sure.
Um, things like foundation come up,
Oh,
things like
yeah,
plumbing and electric, and of course you can try to have the best eyes on it, and you can have a home inspection done, but please get the pros in there. One thing I learned is with plumbing, this was one particular project, but snaking it with a video camera snake prior to purchase, because I almost had a total nightmare on a home where we redid, the whole place. All of a sudden, in the floors in the kitchen, water starting to seep out of nowhere. Every time you walk on the floors, brand new, nice floors. And I talked to my guy and I go, hey man, what's the deal? And he goes, oh, it's probably just the what's it called under your sink? The garbage disposal. Like, all right, great. Let's fix that. Like, what are we waiting for? So, all right, gets fixed. And the seeping's still there. Oh, it's going to take a few days to dry up. That's just the residual, blah, blah. So eventually it's still a problem. My GC is kind of like hands off, like, hey man, we've tried everything. Turns out there was, I believe it was like a crack in the foundation, the concrete, and water was kind of seeping through the ground. So yeah, the brand new floors that we had done, the bathroom, we had redone the whole house. The plumber comes in and he's like, hey, it's going to be pretty hefty, but by this amount of room with a tree root or something that hit the pipe with the cracked concrete, you're lucky that we don't need to tear out X amount of walls, floors, space that you had just done.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's some pro tips. Having a structural engineer come out, you know, or a foundation repair company coming out prior to, or, you know, like for me, I'm pretty good with those things. The plumbing, I can't see the pipes, you know, so
yeah.
Electric, you know, you can kind of figure it out. But yeah, that's really cool. It's a gamble. It's not as bad as Wall Street day trading or crypto day trading. It can be very, very, very fun. You feel like you're on HGTV sometimes, like living the actual stuff. That's cool. All right, so that would be the game plan after. Really, any other takeaways that you have for the business in the junk removal space, the demolition world, that you want to impart the wisdom with our audience? And then let's learn about where we could find you and sign off.
Well, one thing I learned early on is be careful of doing bank foreclosure work, because there's not much money in it these days, and they'll try and get you to do all this stuff at cost for all these amazing bid opportunities that they claim to have, and then never present bids.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing, that the bank foreclosure stuff, there's no money in it right now because they don't have any bailout money anymore. So,
So back in the day, it was definitely more lucrative.
Yeah,
these
the
days
bailout
it's much
money,
tighter.
Yeah, bailout money really. Yeah, it was a lot more lucrative. Some of them I'll still do bank foreclosure work, but I tell them that it is bid only. I will come in and bid the job. I won't do it for their pricing. They have better pricing. So I don't know if that's a good tip or not, but
no, that's valuable. Definitely valuable. Any other last little tidbits?
I think that's about it.
Cool. All right. Well, John, how do people in our audience find you guys? I know your website, I know your phone number, but please share so people can reach out.
Yeah, I'm based out of Lynn County, Oregon, and I cover Lynn, Benton, and Marion counties, and sometimes I'll go to the coast. But if it's a bigger job, I'm willing to travel. And if you want to just give me a call, on my phone, or you can look at my website at apexpropertyclearing.com. It's a pretty nice website. I'm pretty happy with it. Or you can just give me a call on my phone at 541-905-6451, and I'm happy to take your call and talk to you. And I love doing bids.
Yep, and he picks up his phone, guys, too.
Yeah, I try.
Something some of you should try to do a little bit more, like John.
Yeah, I try. It's tough, but I understand why some people have trouble with that.
Yeah, well, and you can look at it like, as your business, come up with solutions. There are options. I'm not saying you need to have some, phone call sales center all the time.
Right.
I'm not saying that you need to freak out when you're out with your family that you have to pick up the phone every second you're out at dinner. Enjoy your dinner.
Right.
However, there should be some sort of protocols perhaps that it can kick to another team member. Like we talked about earlier, it goes to a voicemail that says, we'll text you right back if you leave a voicemail. Tell us the scope of the work. Tell us when you need the work done. Some sorts of mechanism, or even auto text systems. If a voicemail is left, kicks to the system, hey, it's John. Sorry, I'm sorry I'm not available right now. Please tell me the scope of work, and that will allow us to get back to you as soon as possible. So Awesome. Sweet. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, John.
You bet.
This is another episode of Demolition Success Secrets, and thank you guys so much for listening. John, you and I will hang out on the line and catch you guys on the next episode.
That's a wrap for this episode of Demolition Success Secrets. Stay tuned and subscribe for more explosive insights from our upcoming episodes. Until then, continue to blow up your demolition business and make the competition rubble in your path.